Hey y'all, I'm Jerdy, and in this video we're going to talk about the new updates to Paladins on the Phase 4 PTR of Season of Discovery. So first, let's go over the blue post and the dev notes and all the changes right now. Big one right here, Hammer of the Righteous damage has been increased to 3 times the weapon damage, up from 2 times on the PTR, but still down 4 times from live. You'll see clips of me testing this out, and I think it feels a lot better now. This is a huge win for Sword and Board tank Paladins. Art of War now reduces the remaining cooldown of exorcism by 2 seconds on a critical hit. Previously was 1 second, another buff for Prot and Ret Paladins. This is an interesting one that I didn't see coming. The Divine Sacrifice rune has been replaced with Hand of Sacrifice. No longer is it a party-wide CD, it is now for a single target only. I don't know why they didn't just make this a raid-wide cooldown like it was when you improve the talent in Wrath and in Kata, but an interesting change nonetheless. I have no say on the matter on this one. Here's one that caused a lot, if not the main discourse for Prot Paladins. Activating Holy Shield no longer provides attack power, but provides 2 spell power per defense instead. Why? Why? Most of our strongest abilities are attack power, like Hammer of the Righteous and Shield of Righteousness. Why is this off of spell power? In my last video, I talked about how we scale off a lot of different things. This only adds more to that mess, and we'll talk more about that in a little bit. But right now, I'm not a fan with this. The Malleable Protection rune now doubles the spell power bonus granted when activating Holy Shield. So these work side by side with each other, which is great, I guess, in certain aspects. It's just, I don't think I'm ever gonna need Divine Protection, the shield wall version, over Sheath of Light and my attack power bonus with spell power. So right now, all this really tells me is that we just don't want to run Holy Shield. From a DPS standpoint, I must make that clear. From a DPS standpoint, I just wouldn't want to run Holy Shield. This is another big one. The Vindicator rune now has been replaced with a new rune, Shock and Awe, a Holy Shock rune, believe it or not. Didn't see that coming either. Holy Shock now grants the Paladin 1 additional spell power per point of intellect for 30 seconds on use. It's nice that they got rid of the Vindicator rune, because what they did with it is they put it in the Vindication talent. It's not as strong as the Vindicator rune, but if you can read it right here, the Vindication talent now reduces the target's attack power by 70, 140, or 210, depending how much you spec into it, and grants 3, 6, or 10% additional attack power, again, how much you spec into it, to the Paladin when it triggers, last 30 seconds. So it's kind of a win-win for everybody. It's just not as strong. It's a win for Reds in that they can now also get Righteous Vengeance on top of having Vindicator in some way, shape, or form in their talent tree now. And it allows Prots to get Shield of Righteousness. And speaking of Shield of Righteousness now causes damage equal to 2 times the Paladin's shield block value. It also, in the notes, said it was buffed from attack power as well, but they corrected it now saying that that was an error. That's fine. This ability is a lot stronger and I like it. Again, scaling off block value really isn't ideal, but I'm glad that they buffed it. So just reading the notes, who is this a win for? Technically, it's a win for everybody, but it's a main win for Sword and Board tank Paladins. I'm not saying deep Prot necessarily, but Sword and Board tank Paladins and Shockadins, weirdly enough. The reason why I say Sword and Board tank Paladins and not Prot Paladin is that my biggest fear, or my biggest frustration from the last build, was that we were considering, or pretty much guaranteed, going into Purified Power over Hammer of the Righteous and going Vindicator over Shield of Righteousness, meaning we weren't even running Sword and Board runes for a Sword and Board build. I didn't like that at all. With these changes though, Sword and Board tank Paladin got a huge buff. Again, I'm saying Sword and Board and not deep Prot. We tested this out on the PTR when it was live, and the damage that I got with the build I ran was really, really satisfying, but I did not have Holy Shield. And the build, however, going deep Prot showed only a 200, 300 DPS loss, but for the sacrifice of more mitigation. Now here's the thing, if they change back that spell power to attack power, that might make it very competitive with the build I did. Now the losers in this, even though everybody got buffed, it really feels like Ret Paladins are still very frustrated even after these changes are legitimately buffs to their class. Nothing was really done for slow weapons. The Art of War buff is better, but does nothing for slow weapons. Getting Righteous Vengeance is awesome, it just does nothing for slow weapons. This is fun for faster weapons, yeah. It just doesn't do what Reds were hoping they would see in this PTR update. Now for Holy, I don't really play the class too much. I know Shockadins are a little happier with this, which is awesome. That's cool that y'all get to play this class with a little more confidence. In regards to Holy healing, it doesn't seem like much really changed. Hand of Sacrifice is cool and all, but other classes get that without the sacrifice part. This is the build I was running when I was on the PTR today. You can see, yes, it barely goes into the Prot tree. I'm sorry for showing y'all this, but this is what I ran. While I was on test work, I really did not show any signs of dying unless we had a healer issue, like when we realized we only had maybe 2 in the run. The build that I built, however, that's a little more mitigation-y, looks like this right here. We lose Vengeance for the sake of shield specialization and anticipation, but everything else remains the same. This is if we need a little more mitigation going into our raids. And if you look at the runes, they're the exact same for each build. We run Wrath, Shield of Righteousness, Aegis, Hammer of the Righteous, Art of War, Avenger Shield, Sheath of Light, Hand of Reckoning, Holy Specialization, Defense Specialization, but you can also swap this for a weapon if you're non-human and you feel like you don't need the mitigation. Now in the logs you see right here, you can see me running this Ret Prot set, and you can see our other Prot who runs Deep Prot running his set. He main tanked, so he had the threat and was getting most of the hits. You can see the damage is not that far off. Yes, it's a 200 to 300 DPS loss, but that's not necessarily that bad for the sake of going into mitigation. I can't speak for other tank classes. I just know that right now I'm in a pretty solid spot, mainly for sword and board tank paladins. Again, I'm not saying deep prot for a reason. I don't want y'all yelling at me in the comments like you're not a protection paladin like y'all do in my other guides, but it's a win for sword and board tank paladins, and that we get to use our sword and board runes still if we want to tank. Like I said earlier, we were considering Purified Power and Vindicator, but still going sword and board, not using any of those sword and board class fantasy runes to be a tank. This is a huge win in my opinion. My only concern is that Holy Shield change. I don't know what it was about. I don't know why we did that. If that gets swapped back to attack power instead of its spell power conversion, that would be a huge win for deep prot enjoyers. Now, as I'm recording this, Zyrene just put out a tweet saying that right now they're not pushing for more attack power. I already responded to it, my opinion, but it makes me wonder they're trying to push spell power on us. In my personal opinion, just swap this back to attack power and prot paladins will be very happy campers. We like all the other changes. Put this to attack power and we'll be happy. Don't make this any more difficult. Just put it back to attack power. That's all you need to do. Literally, that is all you need to do. I also want to quickly talk about the new update to the raid lockouts. When the raid lockouts were first announced, I was not happy with the idea of MC Molten Core being bi-weekly. That did not make me excited as a raid leader to do that, or as someone who wants to play on alt. I know you don't have to make every raid. You don't have to go to every lockout, but that's just what we do as WoW players. And it doesn't feel good when you are at a disadvantage for those who can make every lockout. But luckily, Agrin posted an awesome change in my opinion to where Molten Core is a weekly lockout, but the one raid bosses, the new instance world bosses and Onyxia are on the new bi-weekly lockout. That is a very fair compromise, and that is exactly what I was hoping they would do, and I'm so happy they changed that. Thank you very much for that change, Agrin and the rest of the devs. But that's all from me, you guys. Let me know down in the comments below what you think about all the changes for Paladin. Do you think it's enough? Do you want more? Are Shockadins happy? Make sure you sub to the channel if you haven't. I am so close, less than 100 subs with 500 marker, y'all. I appreciate everybody for the subs and the support. Follow me on twitch.tv/JerdyJD. And as always, thanks for stopping by. Thanks for saying hi, and I'll see y'all in the next video.